Okay, gang, so we're gonna do the whole summary thing. Well, that's actually really cool, but while I mess around with all this, I would like to first talk about what this is all about. First of all, this is going to be summarizing what this server doc says and how that affects Keshav and Aaron's reasoning with basically everything because apparently they lied about a ton of stuff to try to convince me, but yeah, I don't think that's how that works when everything you say is basically a lie because you expected me not to see on the dock. And what really happened is, well, now I know. That's why you were so worried. You were really worried about whether or not I had access to the dock. Okay, so now we're going to start with the server doc. I will edit this video later and add screenshots of certain DM moments so it kind of pieces it together. And let's just start, right? Okay, so this is the first log of me in June 29th, I'm pretty sure. But basically, my alt joins the Parla Revolution server to purge. I used Undiscord, maybe that's wrong, but as a thing, and I get kicked, obviously. It's the same thing, I join it again, and then I get banned, but what I'm doing is purging, which is why I was rejoining. I wouldn't have bothered either way. But this is the document of what my first crash out is. Crash out, by definition, is incorrect from what they think of. They think whenever somebody's mad, it's considered crash out. Crash out is much worse than that, but the internet has convinced people to think it that way. And the new server, well, maybe I did call it that, but I wouldn't actually, but there's a ton of reasons behind that, and I won't go into all in this video, but you can watch the other unlisted video about the paper. And then, this is what happens about the leveling system. The leveling system caused a ton of things, a ton of problems about how people were very competitive over talking a lot and also instigated a lot of spamming because obviously it allows you to level up more. And I just thought the reason why we basically changed was using the level system. Clarence reset it, so why are you re-implementing a leveling system knowing very well that it could be the fall off of this entire server? And now I think nobody even cares anymore because of how bad it was. And I crashed out over her new username, which is everyone, I'm getting Japanese, but you already announced it 3 months ago or even longer than that. Then why are you saying it one more time a long time later when we already know this and acting as if it's new information? I don't know who you're trying to tell it to, but there's no reasoning for it. And yeah, this is why I should make attention speaker. And if you think I'm typing paragraphs, then that's just me typing things. Just because you guys are used to sending messages one after another in one singular messages for one sentence each, or not even a sentence, maybe a phrase. That's not a thing. And if you think that's philosophical, then basically you're just saying people like Keshav are being philosophical. Yet you think I'm being philosophical. And then this is the most recent one, and I think one of the more important ones. And I call it horrible and full of Roblox addicts. Okay, that's genuinely true because it's a dead server and y'all are just addicted to Roblox at this point. And at that time I didn't want Hugo to refriend. I didn't want to refriend Hugo because he was rage baiting me at him. I don't have any screenshots for that, but he rage baited me a lot and aggressively. Well, maybe is it aggressively? I don't know. Perhaps it is, but the sad story of it's a sad story, but you don't need to document that. And also, I don't know why Lom of all people would be sorry. First of all, she shouldn't care about me anymore, and second of all, it's my mom's pet. She doesn't know my mom, and it's not her problem. That's how it is. Okay, this is situation. I don't understand, but whatever. Stresses for his AP exam piano competition. Yeah, because not everything does not, because I have an AP exam too. I took AP pre-calculus, and this year I'm probably gonna take another 3. But I know AP exams are important for your future, but you are not spending your time wisely and stressing way too much when you don't need to be. You wouldn't need to stress if you were ready, but this proves that you weren't ready because of how many things you messed up with. First of all, when Aaron and Sophia and Keshav, I don't even know what Keshav's doing. I don't think he takes any APs, but basically, Sophia says we should stop talking about this or else Derek's gonna crash out. But then Keshav always said questioning why. Well, he wouldn't know because Sophia thought it was a great idea to delete the message, and then now you just put this and they document this without piecing it together. It's like really obvious based on these two lines right here. You can tell that they weren't thinking at the time. Insult his studying habits because, first of all, you know that Mr. Baker is a teacher, like a terrible teacher, and you weren't paying attention. Okay, I want to say you weren't paying attention, but you didn't take him seriously enough. But I don't think you took enough time to actually lock in and get all over all this stuff. And second of all, you're on Discord for 2 hours talking to people instead of locking in. And then later in the log, when it's AP release date, you guys are too scared to leak your scores except in private. Why? Maybe because you did bad, or maybe because you don't want to see other people to see you did bad. And I wonder why that happened. Maybe before the test the test was about to start, you were busy on Discord talking to other people rather than studying. Maybe that's the reason. And then Keshav's questioning me over it, but he doesn't even want to. And because I was being correct, I genuinely think I was correct with that. Like, you guys are not studying, and you guys are blaming me for getting mad at you for having these terrible studying habits. It's not really a flaw, but that's definitely a way that's gonna bring you down in the future if you guys will keep on getting procrastinating over what you're supposed to be doing or getting distracted by other people talking to you. I would suggest not using Discord when you're studying. Close the thing, turn on Do Not Disturb on your phone and just forget about it. That's what you're supposed to do, because otherwise you're gonna just fail and then blame it on other people because they told you that you should, but then you just didn't listen to them. And then Hugo decides to jump in and say that, well, you shouldn't be crashing out. But I told him to leave because, first of all, he jumped in without anybody mentioning him. And then I know that if he continues to bother me, then I will eventually get even more pissed at him. So that I just told him to leave. And in a kind of rude way, but it's the only way to get him up to leave. And then they're over here thinking that I'm really wise. First of all, I'm not really wise. I don't know why everybody thinks wise is a great description of somebody who just tries to act smart. That's what they think they are. You don't even apply wise as a good thing anymore. You only use it as an excuse to insult somebody. And better than everyone else. I never said better than everyone else. I just wanted to share my opinion that I personally believed was correct. And then I was being mad and just being defensive. What am I being defensive for? I'm being offensive. Because what I'm trying to do is point out other things. Otherwise, you wouldn't listen. That's being offensive. Okay, maybe offensive is the wrong word, but defensive would mean me defending myself. I'm not defending myself. I'm trying to point yourself out. And if you don't want to listen, that's fine. But you can't get even more mad at me about it. And I started mocking her because every single time I say something in the server, she thinks I'm crashing out and continues to rage bait me over it. So then, exactly, I'm passive aggressive. That's literally rage bait right there. You're trying to make somebody passive aggressive by instigating them to being not passive anymore. That's basically the thing. Whenever he tries to make a point. Oh, okay, maybe when you're making a point that you believe is correct, why would you try to be very aggressive about it? Especially if it's something you truly believe in, or let's say if it's information you're trying to extract, but you already know the information, you're just trying to see if somebody will be willing to share that information without me, that's private or something. Yeah, whenever she has to, because she kept on trying to rate me oh no, you're still mad and stuff like that, or whatever, acting oblivious. And then Max Vlad of all people, the D1 rage baiter and other person who likes to get mad over some things that really are trivial, but basically, Lom did absolutely wrong, he says. Absolutely nothing wrong. First of all, what she said was, why is Derek crashing out again? What kind of D1 rage bait is that? I will put up the screenshots for all this, but what is that rage bait? Like, genuinely. And he's a crash out too. There's also like a ton of screenshots of him getting mad just because I said retard. And okay, wait, I shouldn't have said that so loud. And then he said kill yourself. And then people let me say, but I was just mad at the time, and he just said it because who knows why. And then he tries to roast me. I don't remember roasting it. And then you're wondering why I did that. First of all, you're trying to roast a person and you're trying to make more points through rage baiting, and then you're making it look like I'm the bad guy here. And then second of all, Max Vernon comes in to defend him. I don't know how he defended him. He barely said anything. And Keshav's over here trying to calm us down by trying to comment on our ego and trying to roast us about our ego and say that, oh, you can't be doing that. You're basically throwing stones from a glass house. Okay, but then you're trying to defend Max Vlad, who's in a glass house but painted himself to look like bricks. That's basically what he is. And the same thing with you. You're just trying to pretend to be a good person in like a mansion, but really you just like stole the whole thing or robbed somebody to get it. And then I get muted and I get banned. The end. Okay, I'm defending myself because I believe that you guys made the mistake here, and I went too far from rage baiting. Went too far from rage baiting. That's their idea. And then to join his name, I did not want to join his name. First of all, he was guilt tripping me for that, so he can't say I was trying to guilt tripping him first. First of all, he was trying to guilt trip me into feeling that I made the mistake and that I should regret it and people are getting hurt by this. First of all, that's guilt tripping. And then what I try to guilt trip, I don't have any evidence for that, I'm sorry, but if he can find those DMs, I was not trying to guilt trip him. And then Aaron lets Derek know he isn't falling for it and ghosts him. Okay, first of all, I'm not falling for his guilt tripping, and if he thinks that's a problem for me, then why can't he think about himself first? That's a very selfish decision right there. And then I get blocked, and it's causing him to send a message saying that he's unfriending Derek. Okay. I unblock him. I attempt to friend him. If it's a 144 message long guilt trip, if you think anything to defend yourself when somebody is rage baiting and making them look like the victim, first of all, what you guys think that rage baiting is a complete joke, and then what the problem is, you're trying to make me look like a terrible person without any legitimate evidence and why you should support that evidence. Because first of all, your reasoning most of the time is that I should have to fall for the rage bait and it's supposed to be a joke. Okay, first of all, how am I supposed to know it's a joke? And how is a joke supposed to be a communal joke in which it runs on indefinitely? Like it goes on forever. How is that a joke anymore? It's complete rage baiting. And then you try to make that your reason for why I'm making other people look like terrible people. And then how I'm not the victim. And then I'm irrational now. First of all of your allegations are irrational, so you cannot be talking right here. And if you're taking screenshots, well, you're taking private DMs and sharing it to people, and you're sharing it to the one person who loves to spread false rumors. And this eventually gets him enrolled. He tries to use his alt, which I have to summarize before, is that what he did was he made him talk. He was like, oh, I have a friend you need to talk to, first of all. Hopefully, I'll show this screenshot, but hopefully he did it as a person who was supporting him. It's just keshav, then they're not outside the situation. Just because you just dragged him in doesn't mean he was outside the situation in the first place. You dragged him in. It's not a whole, he just decided to give his point of view. No, you just dragged him. You forced him to give your opinion. And then tries to point out things. Okay, so you're the one over here trying to point out my flaws, but you don't let me point out your flaws. How is this supposed to happen? It's like you can't like do this thing without being equally representative of like both sides. You are trying to be a polite diplomat, but you have to support both sides. However, you're over here supporting him, but then realizing that you're supporting a hypocrite because what you're doing is pointing out flaws. That's basically what I was doing. Trying to give him advice, that's what I was doing, and fix himself. I was trying to fix their literal addiction to Discord because they were on there while trying to study. And then false accusations. Well. False accusations. First of all, you guys have false accusations because based on these docs, all of those are lies. First, and Lom, if I was stating about how she was a cheater, first of all, I have access to the Padlet. I know she's a cheater. You can't prove me against that at this point. And then over here, I continue to disregard Keshav. Okay, first of all, Keshav decided to be very polite. I have the logs. He was trying to use a ton of analogies, which makes him sound like, well, really wise based on what they're saying. But then he tries to get the point across. And guilt trip. First of all, he tried to guilt trip me, man. Oh, there are people who don't really have friends and don't have anything to do. Okay, that's literally guilt tripping somebody into believing that what they were doing is wrong. Making it sound, that's what you were doing. You were making it sound like other people's life were horrible. I never said my life is horrible. I was saying my life is horrible because you're making it so. There's a difference. It's called stop in a friendly manner. You weren't in a friendly manner in the beginning. You weren't even in a friendly manner. You can't say that. And then now we have to go to part 3, which is some other 3 days or whatnot. I send an apology, okay? I send an apology. I won't join again. I was just watching to see the reaction. It's very well received. For like the first 2 people, and then Max Vlad is literally rage baiting the response. He's like, oh, he decides to apologize. Who's gonna actually listen to this guy? I didn't want that, so I just deleted it because apparently if nobody's gonna respect it, then why should I keep it there? And then for literally no reason, I guess there was a reason. You guys are exaggerating it. You can't literally give a valid reason without exaggerating to the point where it's a lie. And completely ruined. Of course you think that. Lost all the respect. You never had the respect, and I deleted it. And I block him. I unblock him and I try to be nice again. I'm like, okay, bro, you gotta regret that. Like, basically, you just try to support people who are just rage baiting and not respect in the first place. And, of course, he ignores me because he doesn't want to listen to another point of view. And then I get replaced, and then I'm kicked off on all accounts. And then he decides to add foods and meals. Okay, this is completely unrelated, but I invited this man to VectorCore, which is a community I felt a huge part of in the RAS servers, okay? And then he decides to steal it word for word from the server, which I let him. Otherwise, he does it to boost server activity because he knows the server is dying. So he takes away from my choice to invite him to a server that is part of my community, and he tries to add it to his community without crediting anybody and making it serve as his own idea. And it's like the same idea. I will literally show it later, but this is literally the same idea as what VectorCore is trying to go for. And then they promised that they wouldn't talk about me. First of all, this is a complete joke at this point, right? Because I'm trying to make myself look cool using complex words. First of all, that's just how I talk. And it's not to make myself cool. It's just trying to get a point across, being specific. And then, if that's what makes you cool, then why do you talk in this philosophical sense to get your point across too? It's the same idea, but you're just making it look as if my way is wrong. And then, this is where it gets even worse, because you're continuing to reveal that you share my posts on Instagram. First of all, they're private stories. You do not have the right to share it to other people, especially people like Keshav, where I definitely don't want to serve. And then I send her random reels because what else do you do on this Instagram? My other friends sent me random reels. Why can't I send it to you? I thought I could trust you to the point where you wouldn't be leaking my posts. And then what I'm posting on Insta, well, I want to spread awareness, and apparently that's considered trauma dump, which it could be, but shitting on other people on the server, what are you doing right now, huh? It's an idea of, oh, he did this, therefore we can do that without any problems. What is the logic behind that? And then I added him back to the server, but first of all, I was trying to apologize, and now over here you're shit talking other people when you said you weren't for me, and now you're being a hypocrite because you're shit talking other people and acting as if it's my fault again. And then what here is I asked him to send a message to say, I know you guys are still talking about me, so please stop talking. And then they think it's a threat. Okay, but I didn't ask you to literally document everything I was saying and everything I wanted to say. Like, you guys were literally just shit-talking me and then documenting it and acting as if I would never know. Because you thought I would never know, but I did know. So I told you guys to stop. And Gianna, who isn't even a part of this, I never mentioned her once and I didn't want her to be a part of it. And he says, I'm attention seeking. First of all, you're attention seeking and you're part of a ton of drama. So, like, this is crazy. And then Lom, of all people, is mad. I'm trying to threaten people. First of all, I do not want to be documented and shit talked in a literal document for whatnot. I don't even know. And Strong trying to make himself look like the victim. And then John, of all people, I still don't understand why she's the one dissing me the whole time. And then a set of allegations. First of all, Priyasha and Sarah. Okay, first of all, that means Keshav leaked everything. Keshav leaked what I said. And then that also means that Priyasha is somebody's under the impression that I'm going to attack Priyasha, which I completely don't understand. And then Sarah, well, first of all, we're going to see it later, but basically they think I'm catcalling her, which is basically if I'm in proximity within like 5 meters, okay, that's considered catcalling to them. And then she gives the impression, even though she's the one who a long time ago, she's like, oh, when I told Sarah we broke up, she acted happy and stuff. Like, what? Why would you say that as if you're trying to make it as though it's like a bad thing? And first of all, and lastly, I said that Sarah would be a good person to have in a relationship because she's a really nice person, right? And I thought she was a good person, right? And then you guys instantly take that as a bad way, as in I have a crush on her or something. First of all, no, that's not the case. And second of all, if I say it, it's a joke. But obviously, if I say I do have a crush, then it's a complete joke because I don't care about relationships after long because I can't trust the girls anymore. And then you guys are acting as if it's like a big deal and being very creepy. And then I'm very touchy, which is irritable. Okay, I'm irritable a lot these days because of how annoying you guys can be. And about the cheating allegations, first of all, if I could just find that one person who was sending the screenshots to me, I would have the entirety of the evidence. But I don't. And I also saw it, and I know how bad the sexting was between them. And the failed rebellion server, first of all, that was not a rebellion server. I wanted to make a Discord bot eventually, so I wanted to test out how to make a server, and it was supposed to be dead. I barely sent any messages, but they thought it was from rebellion. I don't know why, but that's apparently what they thought. And then he announced that he had a screenshot of the server. First of all, that means he was actually actively leaking what was in the server. That means there was a spy in there. And that means Max Vernon's ult was actually Aaron. That just proves it. He documents this. He didn't think I would know that. Now his only defense right now is like, oh, I transferred ownership. Somebody who was editing that was not me. Bro, we know it was you. This has been mentioned 2 times. And that genuinely means that it's you. And it presents evidence of me being a creep. Okay, so basically what you did was take out all my DMs out of context and then frame it in certain ways that would look bad. And then threatening technically, okay, I already stated this. You're literally leaking my private info to Keisha, which I do not appreciate. And then she denies it, even though I know it's true. They're just a bunch of psychopaths, bro. Like, you kind of realize that if you're gonna deny something, you don't document it for somebody who can eventually read it. And attacking her through its ults, first of all, I was not attacking you. I was trying to defend myself because you guys were making all these allegations that were completely false and trying to ruin a reputation that you aren't even a part of as a high schooler. And continuously attacked until he presents all the allegations. All these false allegations, which I didn't even believe. I just literally was trying to do all this stuff where, damn, this is all wrong. Like, how can you say all this stuff and get away with it? And I didn't even delete all of it. Like, I only deleted Insta because I didn't trust anybody on there anymore, and also because it was like becoming a weird app. I really thank Oscar for this because despite all the allegations and evidence, first of all, false allegations and false evidence, he's still gonna be nice. I didn't do anything to Oscar, and I'm nice to him, okay? And I just wanted the best for him. And Gianna, for some reason, is disappointed. Of all people, she has a ton of drama around her and what she's been saying. I don't know why she's saying that. And then they have this whole argument. But this is what is crazy. She has 29 screenshots and 2 of which show creep behavior. First of all, you only have 2 of me. I have over 5 of you. I have like 5 of them about you being a weird, like, gay person that, like, not even gay. Like, you're talking about tickling feet and literally doing stuff like full on being a whole Diddy mode and stuff like that. And then you have only 29. Okay, I have way more of all of you that has like a ton of evidence, and I also have all of this. I wrote a whole paper about how you guys are wrong. I debunked everything. You can't even defend yourself at this point. Maybe you can defend yourself, but just know that I can't trust whatever you say, because the last times you defended yourself, they were all lies. So how can I believe what you say anymore? And then Keshav decides to defend Oscar because he wants to make peace and he wants to look like the good guy. Otherwise, his reputation is somewhat ruined. And then that just goes on forever until they just don't care anymore. And then they all start talking. I don't even know why. The people are still being attacked. First of all, nobody has been attacked. Nobody's been attacked, man. Nobody. And then Oscar is actual rage bait. First of all, you guys always say rage bait, so that's not a good, valid info. And then where else will you defend? Also, this whole situation over here is some false allegations that they're facing. First of all, I'm facing false allegations. I'm defending myself, and they had to defend myself. Yet they can't put the pieces together and realize what they were doing to me is the same thing about this kid doing what happened to them. But they don't realize it. And then this is just an extra stuff about how they talked about death and what happens in afterlife, whatnot. And I put deep quotes, and they flame me for it. But in the end, this is just what's been happening in the server document, which I think is horrendous, bro. Like, why are you documenting stuff? But this also brings to the fact that Aaron was desperate to know what my email was on the doc. I wasn't on the doc. Well, I was on the doc, but I managed to save it, okay? But this doc, you wanted to remove me because of the things you said on there. You said you transferred ownership, but then why are you so worried about it? Why would you be so worried to the point where you need to remove me after you forgot about it for, let's say, 2 months? And you go to it immediately. And you claim that you were spying on my server, was that whole thing that was being documented was wrong. And now if we look at this, you admit to actually spying on the server. So your form of defense was a complete lie. You are a lying psychopath. You cannot get away with this any longer. I will post this on a channel that is completely public. That is my goal. Now, I hope anybody watching this understands, but my name is Derek, and this is what I have to deal with from a bunch of people who try to use false allegations against me while trying to guilt trip me and rage bait me and call me a crash out for this. They try to say that I was threatening them and doing all this shit talking when they're the ones that are also shit talking and also threatening me to fix myself. When they are the ones whose actions shape who I have to be now. Because this is what I have to deal with. I have a ton of DMs that I can use as evidence, and I wrote a whole paper that debunks everything they've said. So they have no evidence that is safe from what I can, like, what's the word? Debunk. Just say debunk, okay? I can literally debunk anything they say, and yeah, that's it.